Hello and welcome to the Unwanted Opinion podcast, the show which me and my friends give our unwanted opinions on all things film. Look who's back! I'm joined here
Uh,
today with Gonzalo. I'm saying his name first this
Hey,
time because he's finally here.
I'm back.
God
I'm back.
damn, he's
Finally,
back. He's back.
I
And
missed it.
Kyle, of course, says he's here
oh
every
yeah,
week.
he's out of
All
cryo
reliable.
sleep. He's finally made it back.
Yes. Well, firstly,
Yeah.
Gonzalo, how have you been? What have your adventures
Oh
been like?
man, a whole month of just traveling through the US,
Mm,
then coming back, having a lot of work piled up on me,
yeah,
and yeah, finally had some free time. Managed to actually rewatch all the Alien movies for last week.
yeah,
I just
that's good.
wasn't able to record, but
You
Yeah,
just weren't
that's
able.
yeah. You
yeah,
This is
don't.
the
Yeah.
second time
yeah.
you've done that. You did all the work, and it's like, oh,
And
actually,
then I
I can't
didn't.
do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Sorry.
Did I do that for the Planet of the Apes as well? Yeah, that was
Yeah,
fun.
you did
You
something
you
like
did.
that.
Yeah, you weren't there.
That was so much.
I think that was
I
easier
binged
because
so,
those. I think the
so
majority of those
much.
films are better. So
That I mean that
And
is
and
true.
there's
But yeah,
less. There's less of
yeah.
them. So remember
there's
that.
less.
Yes,
There's
yes.
less.
It's only three. Even though each one of them is like 5 hours long. But yeah. No,
uh,
it was actually a good thing because I actually really like I was very grateful that I rewatched all the movies before watching this
mm,
sequel because as we'll
mhm.
touch on it, like it very heavily references a lot of the different movies in the
Yes,
franchise.
yes,
Yeah.
it does. So, as
Mm.
Gonzalo was talking about, we are going to be discussing Alien Romulus, the new entry into the long, almost 50-year Alien franchise. Yeah, and then of course we'll have our spoiler-free and spoiler-filled sections. So obviously, if you're interested in the film, listen to our spoiler-free section. Then we will go into spoilers in the second half of the show. Plus, we will conclude with a very quick review of Kneecap, the new
Yeah.
Irish, I should say, Irish film, uh, which
Yeah.
opens tomorrow here in the UK. So let's get underway. Right, so Alien Romulus was directed by Fede Alvarez, most known for the Evil Dead remakes and Don't Evil Dead remake, I should say, and Don't Breathe. It was also written by Fede Alvarez as well as Rodo Sayaves, and stars Kelly Spenny, David Johnson, amongst many others. So this time around, it gets kind of convoluted here where we're talking about where this goes in the franchise. You don't really need to
Yeah.
have seen anything else to understand
Yeah.
this. Well, maybe watching the first Alien would help, but this is set
Yes.
in between Alien and Aliens, so it's an
Mm.
in between call. Not we know this is, but for the most part, this is very much its own piece. I mean, watching other stuff in the franchise will actually help with certain references and so on. But yes,
Mm.
so Kaylee Spenny plays his character Rain, and her and Andy, who's David Johnson, who's synthetic, who's sort of who she calls her brother. You know, he's a companion, someone to keep her safe. Someone to sort of look out for her, and they work in this colony, Jackson Star, where they believe they've managed to work off their mining contract after 12 years of work. However, Will Jutani has other ideas and claims that no, you've only done half your contract and must go back to the mines for another
Yeah.
12 years. Meanwhile, a bunch of her group of friends, so you've got Tyler, Kay, as well as Bjorn and Navarro, have hatched this plan. There is a space station above Jackson Star which hosts cryotubes, and cryotubes fuel as most essentially what they need to sort of go across to a better life in Iyava. But of course, this is Alien. Things are not so simple. And when they finally hatch this plan to go steal those cryotubes, there is, of course, things waiting aboard the space
Yeah.
station Romulus. So that's all I'll say about the plot just now. Gonthal, I'm going to come to you first. You haven't talked in months. What were your overall thoughts of Alien Romulus?
I was surprised by this movie. So,
Mm,
as I do with a lot of the movies that I actually go and watch, I went in pretty blind. You
mm-hmm,
guys know I'm not much of a like I don't like wait for the trailers to come out. I don't watch all the different versions
mm-hmm,
of the trailers and
mm-hmm,
speculate. I like coming in blind to a lot of films. And I'm glad that I did for this one. I didn't really have any sort of expectations. I wasn't even planning on watching this movie,
mm-hmm,
and I was really pleasantly surprised. I had a really fun time. I think, I mean, it very clearly harkens back to that kind of like slasher origins
mm-hmm.
of Alien, of the small group of people being, cut down one by one as the threat increases, with the whole final girl thing. That it's very like, it's a very kind of like tropey thing and stuff. So I had a really fun time. It really gave me like a very kind of like fun return to the original films. I really like the idea that they went a lot more grounded. I love that they had all new characters. For one, except for the asterisk kind of thing we'll talk about later. Um, but yeah, no, it was rather fun. I liked a lot of the set pieces. I think they had a lot of fun and a lot of creativeness around like how, hey, these threats that we're already very aware of that we've seen in a lot of movies, how can we do a couple of twists for the set pieces to try to like make them a bit more like, interesting and stuff. I had a really fun time, and my main takeout from the movie is that these two protagonists absolutely killed it. Like the cast did an incredible job with this movie, just in general.
Mhm.
The more side characters, they absolutely like stole the show. Surprised because if you had told me, hey, what if Alien but with teenagers, I would have said that sounds absolutely horrific. I don't want to watch
Mhm.
that. They did a fantastic job. They really felt like, yeah, like they really
I don't want
sold.
to watch that.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to watch that. That sounds
Yeah.
horrific. But they really did like steer clear from this kind of like YA thing that it could have transformed into,
Yes.
and really sold the, hey, we like they're young people, but like because of the conditions of this horrible like hyper capitalist galaxy, they've really been like beaten down to the point that they just are not no
Mhm.
longer young people. They're just,
Yeah.
Mhm.
they have the brashness, but they also have the kind of like loss of hope and tiredness of older people because
Mhm.
they live in a really shitty situation. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I had a really fun time with
Good.
it.
Good. All right, Kel. What about you?
It's funny how Godfather was talking about the whole kind of aspect of liking that they were teenagers, because one of the things that
Mm.
I immediately came out with afterwards was I
Mm.
love seeing a film where characters make dumb decisions and they're not professionals, because that's something
Mm.
that really
Yes.
riles me
Yeah.
up.
Prometheus.
Yeah.
Yes. Prometheus has that.
Prometheus,
Yes.
Prometheus and Covenant when they're meant to
Yeah.
be like
Yeah.
professionals, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you, can follow that. Obviously, that
Mm.
whole Jackson Star Colony when they're like, oh yeah, my parents
Mm.
kicked the bucket, and they're really kind of going for themselves. It does give a sense of they are kind of mature, but there is that naivety
Mm.
of they are kids and they are
Yeah.
a bit dumb because what they're doing, this sort of like almost heist thing,
Mhm.
is reckless,
Mhm.
is
Really
stupid.
stupid and
But they
reckless and
have that
dangerous.
thing like,
Mhm.
oh, it'll be fine, and I'm like,
Yeah.
if I saw a bunch of like, Covenant going, yeah, let's just take our
Desperate
helmets
adult.
off, and this,
Yeah.
yeah, sure,
Mhm.
the atmosphere says breathable, but we can
Mm.
just take our helmets off.
Yeah.
I always hate that. So I kind of enjoy the aspect of I'm allowing them to fuck up, and I feel okay with it because they
Mhm.
are
Yeah.
teenagers. But no,
Yeah.
on the same kind of part that I felt that I wanted one thing from this, and that was it to be
Mhm.
almost kind of like an original Alien film, because
Mm.
I've always said, how many times can you mess up like a slasher? The amount of slasher
Mm.
films that
Yeah.
you're just like, you've got A and B and that equals C. And
Mm.
as me and
Mhm.
Lewis will know from seeing the Halloween redone trilogy, is that doesn't it's not as
It's
simple
more
as
than
you
that.
think. It's not as simple as
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
think.
Mhm.
That's it. That, as well as the absolute amazingness that was the practicality of this film.
Oh my God.
Mhm.
Yes.
The
Yes.
Sets were
just
great.
Mm-hmm.
sets were great. I mean, there's the first scene of the ship, and I'm like, I know that's a model, and I love it,
Mm.
and I just
Mhm.
love it
Mm.
because
Yeah.
I'm just like
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
watching the behind the scenes. I am like, there's a bit kind of feeling and something I think was kind of good, that this does feel like
Mm.
almost like a high budgeted fan film. But what I kind of really take
Yeah.
away from that
Mhm.
is the absolute passion I saw these guys
There's
behind the
love.
scenes trying to
Yeah.
make,
Mhm.
you know, the sets look really authentic,
Mm.
the actual
Mhm.
suits, there wasn't as, that they had so many practical xenomorph
Mm.
suits on the scene.
Mhm.
And I,
Mm.
I
Yeah.
love that because I like
Yeah.
seeing filmmakers putting in a bit more effort
Mhm.
than
Yeah.
Yeah.
the
To
occasional.
be fair, a lot of that will be touched up with
Oh
CGI
yeah.
and just
Oh,
effects and
No,
definitely.
whatnot. Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
But that's the
obviously
thing.
touched
The
up, yes, but
integration of the, because I the most recent one I watched was Aliens, because I
Mhm.
was saving that up because that's one that I hadn't watched for a while, and it is really amazing to see how some of the movement of the aliens really
Mhm.
matches like of the xenomorphs really matches like that of like those original suits. But then a
Mhm.
lot of it is really well touched up with CGI.
Mhm.
Like I
Yes.
really think
Yeah.
that integration of practical
Mhm.
effects with CGI is what gives it that really
Yeah.
like grounded feeling. Like CG artists need something to fucking work on top of.
Yeah,
And when you
yeah,
give them
yeah.
something amazing, they can create something incredible,
Mm.
you know?
It's the best looking, the Xenomorphs, the most convincing
Yeah.
from all these
Yeah.
films, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah, I'll give it that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Yeah, you
absolutely
jump in.
agree with you guys about Kaylee Spenny and David Johnson. I think their dynamic is absolutely fantastic. Andy,
Yeah.
especially. I mean, no matter how bad some of these alien films are,
Mm.
the android characters are just
You said
genuinely
that,
worth
yeah,
the
you
effort.
said
All the
that.
effort goes into them.
Always the best
Even
part.
like, even if
Yeah.
I'm a bit iffy on something like Prometheus or Alien
I
Resurrection,
love the android characters.
the
They're really
androids
cute.
characters
Yeah.
tend
Yeah.
always end up being the most interesting and
Mm.
most fun to watch in these films. And David obviously is the highlight of those two
Mm.
prequel films as well. Like we're saying, technically, really, this is an $80 million film. It looks better than Deadpool Wolverine, which has more than double the budget of this, way more than
Yeah.
double the budget of this. Actually, visually competent, looks good. The visual effects genuinely are phenomenal. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if this got nominated for an Oscar for its
Oh,
visual
yeah.
effects. They're
Yeah.
genuinely fantastic.
Mm.
Also, really like how they use like deep focus. Like they have this thing where basically everything's basically you can see everything, backgrounds and foregrounds. This used to be a really big thing in like old films, where they just put everything was in focus. You could see it all, and
It makes
you
sense
can
because
go
they spent hundreds
yeah
of thousands of dollars
on
making these
these.
beautiful
Yeah,
sets.
Yeah.
They
yeah.
wanted to
But like
actually
this is
have
a
them be
especially
shown.
when
Yeah.
something like House
Yeah.
the Dragon is the most recent
Mm.
example where I'm like they're constantly putting things in like close up and like soft and
Yeah.
just everything's out of focus and blending in the background.
Mm.
I'm like, why? Like
Yeah.
just give me a
And
lens where I can see everything. There's no need.
specifically
So that's
here,
good.
it makes those scenes because they use this trick a lot where like it's the very subjective camera, like a handheld camera that's following a character very chaotically, very close up. Whenever you get that, it kicks
Yeah.
in your anxiety of not knowing what's surrounding you because all of the rest of the film is shot in very wide. So as soon as you go narrow into someone, you start looking at the shadows and waiting for something to pop out. Like it really does give you that, like it contributes to that anxiety through the filmmaking.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Very surprised at some of the references and tying into other films in the franchise. Like, wow, I really wasn't expecting them to connect these dots. I thought this was something like a big studio like Disney would be like, let's forget those failures or like those things that aren't going to be concluded and let's add them in some interesting way. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And the last 10 minutes, yeah. They're pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I like kind of how kind of bonkers we
Just
get in those
goats.
last 10
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
I kind of wish more of it was like that. For the most part, though, for me personally, it's not really that scary to me. It was kind of meandered in the middle a bit for me. There's a lot of the same old that we've seen many times. And I was not a fan, especially. I mean, this is the most infamous thing that everyone knows about it online.
Yeah.
We'll talk more in spoilers about that. I guess the use
character
of a
they
certain
brought back.
character they brought in. Not a fan of that at all. I think the way they went about that is the worst way. They could have utilized that figure, that character, that whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
There's no need to do what they did. We'll get more to that in depth in a minute. But yeah, the callbacks, the stuff that unnecessarily referencing to other films of the franchise, like literal lines that were to me really cringy.
Yeah.
I don't get it honestly, because I'm like, if you want to start off this new trilogy franchise, you want to give it its own thing, don't reference a film from 40 years ago. Like that just completely takes me out of the atmosphere that you've tried so hard to make this dark and brooding and scary and eerie. Don't take me out by a stupid reference. I hate that shit.
I completely agree with you, especially
Yeah.
it's the culmination of that scene because there's a lot happening.
Yes,
There's a lot,
yes.
of a character kind of doing something. Hard to say, obviously, out of spoilers. And I
Mhm.
do agree that it does kind of cut it a bit, and you're a bit like,
It's why
Thing is,
yeah. Oh, I
just
just
because of the
for me, I think the thing's okay. I
yeah.
think it was okay. Overall.
Yeah.
I think it was okay for me personally.
See,
There's other things I didn't do.
I would agree with some of that stuff. Like, obviously, calling back so blatantly and so like out of context to an iconic line from a different thing, like it does take you out of it. the reason I didn't really have a problem with it is because
Mhm.
it kind of felt like a labor of love rather than pandering.
Mhm.
To me, when
Right,
that
but
happened,
okay, for
it
for
felt like
you
a
though,
nerding out to be
as
like,
as
hey,
as the three of
yeah,
us have all seen the franchise, right?
mm,
Were you taken out of the moment of the
mm,
like like if he didn't say anything,
yeah,
or if he just said an original line, would
yeah.
you
It
wouldn't
would
have
have been.
been as you wouldn't have
I
detached you from the film?
No, that's the
honestly,
thing. That's the thing. It would have
honestly, it didn't.
objectively would have been better if they didn't say it.
Yeah,
It would have been. Yeah.
my thing is that I
Mm.
Mhm.
hadn't seen Aliens in the film that
Yeah,
it
I
was a
saw
reference.
it like
That it
literally. Yeah,
genuinely
I saw
took
it for
me
the first time.
until
Mm.
like you said it again for me to
Mhm.
realize that was
Right.
involved because I had just forgotten that. Mate,
It's like
I know,
it's
mate,
one of the
I
most
know,
iconic
I
lines in
know,
pop
I
culture.
know, I know, I know. And as soon as you said it again, I felt really bad
Mm.
about myself. But
Mm.
in the moment, I don't. But it's like because
You
when we
didn't
did the
register it. Yeah.
reviews, when we did
Yeah.
Mm.
the ranking, that was the particular
Mm.
film that I was like, I've seen this so much, I know it
Mm.
inside it out.
You don't have
And then
to.
it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
then just
Yeah.
during the film, I
Clearly.
don't know.
Mm.
During the film, I was just like, I feel like rewatching it, I
Yeah.
will be like at that
Mm.
scene. It is a bit I'd be a bit cut, but I have to
Yeah.
admit, in the moment,
Yeah.
it wasn't until you
Yeah.
reminded me I felt really bad.
Yeah.
I was like, shit.
Like
I was like, oh,
I was
It
like
didn't
I
really
think
take me out. It
yeah.
made me like smile in that moment because
Okay.
like it didn't really take me out of the movie in that moment. I was already wanting for that moment where
I can
he
see
kind of like
why.
proves himself worthy
Uh
kind of
huh.
thing. Like
Mhm.
yeah, there's this
It's
character arc moment where someone has to
Mhm.
kind of like, at least for the sake of the audience, this character needs to be redeemed. They do the
Mhm.
thing to redeem them, and then
Yeah.
this line is the punchline. And like
Yes.
it, no, it shouldn't have
mm,
been there.
Mhm.
It's a
Mhm.
stupid thing to add there. Yes, it's pandering,
Yeah.
but it
yeah.
didn't really like hurt me
Mhm.
the way it hurt Lewis. Like for me, it was
Mm.
just like a
It didn't
cheeky
hurt
smile.
me. I
Like
just thought it was just a terrible
No.
decision. Just
There's
everyone
another
was
why do
quiet in the
that?
theater,
there's
and
other
I
Yeah.
just
things
went,
that hurt Lewis.
and
I have to admit that
yeah,
I liked
Yeah.
yeah.
I I
Mm,
agree with Lewis in you saying it was a bit of the
mm,
same old.
mm.
Weirdly,
Mhm.
I think I agree with that, but I think that's also something that I was just kind of wanting because I was
Yeah,
maybe
that's the
a
thing for
bit
me. Yeah.
scared. I don't know. I was
Mm,
maybe a bit burned out
Mhm.
of the whole like obviously Prometheus and Covenant were a wee bit more out there, and
yeah.
Mhm.
there's hits and
You
misses
were
there.
accepting the
Undoubtedly there
cosmic.
are hits and misses in that,
Yeah.
and I think in my head I
Mhm.
was just kind of like. Oh, I'll
Mm,
take the same old. But I agree that it's the same old, and I understand that
mm,
for you, it just didn't hit the same, and
Mhm.
that's
I'm not.
perfectly fine.
I just mean like I've said
mm.
this so many. Like the
I
biggest
know.
complaint about Alien Covenant for me is that oh my god we're on a
That
spaceship with an
last,
alien again.
yeah, the last
Yeah.
And this film
10 minutes.
is we're on a spaceship with more than one
Yeah.
alien in this film.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Whoa!
and that's why I like. Oh well, come on. We've seen hundreds of
Whatever.
face huggers in the trailer. Um,
Well, there's
what
only
I
like
mean,
four
that's
people
what
though.
this oh, there's like seeing when we watch like something like
Oh, I
Covenant.
hate those
That's
things.
Mm,
where I'm like, okay, it's interesting because we're out
Hmm.
in a different planet. We're out seeing
yeah.
different
Mm,
visuals, and that's why I was like, oh, okay, we're going back to
mm,
space station again. And I'm not denying that it looks good for the
mm.
most part, and like
Yeah. No,
there's a
no, no, no.
great
Yeah, yeah,
sets
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff like that. I
No,
was
but
like,
I
I've
know what
seen
you mean.
Resurrection and Alien and at the end of Aliens, and
Yeah.
it's like this. Yeah, we're here again in another dingy
Hmm.
80s looking 70s
Yeah.
aesthetic inspired space station for me. And I was like, oh, well, I would have liked something refreshing. And that's probably if this film, I mean, this film is
Mm,
doing pretty well box office wise.
mm,
Hmm.
If Disney want to greenlight a sequel,
mm.
I'd be more than interested to see where this goes.
Yeah.
But I swear to God, if you put it on another space station, it's
Yeah.
getting
I'll,
a low
I mean,
rating.
yeah.
I'll agree. If
Yeah.
if if they do
Yeah,
it. If they do it again, it's like for me, I'm like, yeah,
I
I've got that now. Like, I don't need
yeah.
another
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Like,
I don't need another
I've
one.
got,
Yeah. Uh
I've
huh.
got like
Hmm.
my Alien and Aliens of the 21st century. That's good.
Hmm.
I've got it there.
That's the
If they
thing.
did it
Yeah, that's the
again,
thing.
it'd be like if it's called
Hmm.
aim.
Hmm.
What was the other side of the spaceship called? If they call it
Remus.
alien,
Remus. It was
alien
Remus.
if
Yeah.
if
Alien.
it comes
Romulus
out
was
as
Remus. Yeah.
Alien Remus, I will
Yeah.
cry because that's
Yeah.
just like it's like
Appropriate
the other
Yeah.
moment.
side of the ship.
I
Uh,
I understand. See, I understand that, and like, Alien 3 and Resurrection really like kind of like soured me to seeing more
Mm.
like space stations and
Mhm.
grungy aesthetics and stuff.
Grungy aesthetics, yeah.
Because they're
yeah.
mostly just boring. Like their
Yeah.
main crime is
Yeah.
that they're dull and
Mhm.
unimaginative and boring.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
Resurrection is shot like it was like a
It's
2000s
it's
MTV
weird.
movie.
Yeah, it's
And
weirdly
like,
similar to the
yeah,
Isolation game. Because
mm,
that's set
yeah,
on a space station as well, and it's
it is.
Yeah.
post-alien, pre-aliens.
Mm, it is, it
You
is.
know, there are weird similarities, but
I will
Well, anyway,
say,
let's
for
should we
me,
move
let's
to
it's
this?
yeah.
we'll
Sorry.
do scores and let's go to spoilers. There's a
Okay,
lot
okay,
we
yeah.
want to get into there. So,
Yeah,
Gonzalo,
because
what are you giving this film out of 10?
I'm shifting between a 7 and an 8 because I really
Okay.
enjoyed it, but it has some
Mhm.
major flaws.
Mhm.
I think overall it was a good time, and
Mhm.
regardless of the score, like I definitely suggest going to watch it. Like this was a fun time for me at the theater.
Mhm.
I watched it alone. I didn't even have the experience of watching it with someone, which would have been nice
Mhm.
if
Mhm.
someone
Oh.
flew to Spain to watch it with me. Would be nice, but no, but like it was a really fun experience, and
Mhm.
especially if you're someone who really loved the first two Alien movies and hasn't
Mhm.
watched an Alien movie for a while, and you just want
Mhm.
to indulge in some fun, weird alien stuff. Yeah, definitely a recommendation for me. So I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I'm gonna say, can we do a half?
Oh, well,
Oh, we don't do halves
Okay,
here.
we
okay,
don't.
I'll do
We're just rating
I'll do
stuff
a
out of
7.
20 at
I'll
that
do it.
point.
I'll do a 7. I'll do a 7.
Okay. Right, Kel. Because let's just rate things out of 20.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go
Right, Kel, what are
seven
you
point
giving?
nine nine nine. No, I'm joking.
Oh.
Mine's gonna be an 8. I did have a lot of fun with
Okay.
this. Just
Yeah,
the
yeah.
way that my day worked out with screenings is that I was genuinely forced to see it in an IMAX showing. Um,
Oh,
Mm.
and I have to
yeah,
admit that
Forced.
forced.
I
Like,
was
Somewhat.
forced.
oh no.
I actually I was like the sound and everything. I was like I really
Mm,
had a
Right,
great
right.
time in the IMAX part of it. I thought it
mm,
was actually quite fun to see there. Um,
Mm.
mm.
the I just the heart palpitations of any time those face. I stand by this
Mm.
that for me the
You hate
facehuggers
the
are scary. That
facehuggers.
I
Yeah,
genuinely do. And
Mm,
scarier
see
than
with
the
that scene,
cinema.
I agree with you. It's like it's not as scary,
mm,
but for me, just those facehuggers, that scene
mm.
genuinely my heart was pounding. And I think that's just because
I
of my
face huggers
That is
so
rational
I
cool.
wouldn't
fear
do that.
of
But
those little
Mhm,
fuckers.
mhm.
Even
yeah,
doing that scares me.
Yeah.
little
I just saw it.
spider
I
legs,
just
man.
saw it in the thing there. I was like, oh my
The
hand.
fact that they're
But
literally
yeah,
modeled to
Yeah.
be like two hands
yeah.
grasping together, it's like
Covering
the
your face.
Yeah,
fingers. Oh my god, it's
but
horrifying.
for me, I'm gonna give it an
Mm,
8. I did think it was really
Mhm.
enjoyable. I agree with all the issues that we
Yeah.
said. I
mm,
don't.
Yeah.
It didn't affect my experience as much. Like I said though, if I have another one on the spaceship,
mm.
we will be
Mhm.
Yeah.
having issues
Yes.
in the
Yes.
future.
We'll be having words. We'll be having words.
Yeah.
Well, as usual, I'm the the grumpy one. Whatever.
No,
I'm
no,
always
no.
going low with this stuff, but I'm giving this a 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like I do think Kaylee Spaney and Davy
Mm.
Johnson,
Oh,
as if he's my
David.
friend, David Johnson,
Yeah.
are absolutely
They nailed
great
it.
to watch.
Yeah.
I
Really,
am
really,
looking forward
really.
to watching them in more stuff. Like,
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, I'm
Civil
so
War.
happy
I
David
was.
Johnson after watching, Rye Lane, one of my favorites
mm,
last year. I was just
mm.
so happy to see him like a big blockbuster. I'm like, yes, he's going to become a big star. I love him.
I hope
His
so.
his
Honestly.
character is very engaging to watch, and yeah, I'm glad there is a blockbuster this summer.
Mm.
Actually, along with you, Twisters, my good friend Twisters, sound like Donald Trump. I'm glad there's a blockbuster this summer that actually, is
Yeah, it was a
really
good
well
film.
shot and
Yeah.
technically
Yes.
well put together.
Yes.
I just
Stunning
think
cinematography.
this film has a lot of baggage,
Mm.
Yeah.
especially for the handling of information. Some of
Mm.
the characters are just not very,
Mm.
obviously just cannon fodder, whatever. I get that. A lot of the same old, same old. We've seen this stuff before,
Mm.
and unnecessary references for me as well.
Mm.
So that's why I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. I think it was decent, and I guess
Yeah.
if you ranking them amongst all the other Alien films,
Mm.
I guess this kind of goes in
Mm.
the higher ones
The ones.
above like Resurrection,
The
Alien 3, and
watchable
even
ones.
Prometheus for me.
When I came out the cinema
Yeah.
when
Mhm.
Lewis came out the cinema and said the words
Mm.
Covenant's better.
Covenant, in my opinion, was a better
Yeah,
film. Yeah.
that hurts me a bit.
That's
I
me.
think
That's me. I'm
I
sorry.
know.
See,
I,
Covenant
No,
I
has
no.
just love.
better
Uh,
moments, but overall as a film, I think it's
mhm.
way less competent as like a whole film.
Mm.
That's my
I just
I
think
stand
Covenant's
by that
more
yeah,
interesting
mm,
to watch
if
mm,
than this.
if
I think,
Covenant
you know.
was Scott
mm.
Ridley's
Mhm.
true vision for that film, I would
Scott
have probably
Ridley, who's
enjoyed it.
that?
Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott.
My name's
Um,
he's his friend. He calls him Scott
Yeah.
Uh,
Ridley. Like
yeah,
a
I call him
thing.
Scott. I call him Scott first. It's the Chinese way. I go
Calls
the
calls
second
him
name
Scott.
first.
I should know that. Yeah.
No, but
Very good.
if Covenant was his full vision, and there wasn't
Mhm.
that
I get
weird
that.
Yeah.
studio interruption, because there is, and that's
Yeah.
undoubtable.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
Mhm.
do. A part of me is kind of like, right, I know he's a busy man with all the ancient Rome stuff. But let him go for it,
Yeah.
let him
Keep
have
going.
one
I wish
wee.
I would
No.
love to see the ending, but
Yeah.
we'll get into actually a bunch of this stuff very
Yes.
soon because
Yeah.
we're
We're
going
into
to spoilers
spoilers.
now. So if you have not seen Alien Romulus, please click away now. Don't worry, time codes and all that nonsense below if you want to skip ahead to the Kneecap
Yes.
review. But yes, let's go to spoilers. Firstly,
Yes.
very beginning of the film,
Yes.
this
Spoilers.
alien, or
Yeah.
the alien that they're using,
Mm.
experimenting on, creating more face huggers and creates its own hive,
Hmm.
is the original alien. It's
Yes.
the one from
Yes.
Alien. Wayland
I-
Yutani just going up.
It just
Clearly,
went up.
Ellen
Yeah.
Ripley.
Mm.
We don't care about the distress signal. Fuck off.
Mm.
We don't need
Yeah.
you. We're just going for this. I like how it's cocooned itself in
I
space.
love
It
that.
has.
I love that. Yes.
It's
It
a
has the
so
ability
very.
to.
So we
Yeah.
were introduced in Aliens at the idea that somehow they secrete something to create
Yeah.
a solid stone to build their hives. So it makes
Yeah.
total sense that they'd be able to like cocoon themselves when in the
Yeah.
void of space. Like that makes total sense. And it's kind of like very much like, water bears, like they can like just shut down their whole metabolism and like survive in extreme conditions and then just reboot it kind of thing. It also makes total sense that fucking Wayland Yutani, like, who knew what they were going up against in the first one and knew what they were there for, would send someone to try and get that, like that.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't really break with any continuity, and I really
No,
enjoy
no.
that. The fact that they're not trying to like reboot anything or like
Yeah.
change any of the lore. Or anything.
Somewhere
They're like, hey,
David's got a wee pad and pen and writing "can cocoon in space if needed."
Yeah.
Like.
Can cocoon in space. Yeah.
David
Yeah.
Fassbender is
That
like
was
brilliant.
that was an
That was a
interesting
gorgeous
development.
start as well.
I never considered, because going in, we knew this was in between Alien and Aliens, and I never really even gave much thought about where they got these facehuggers from or whatever.
They don't
So that
need
was
to, yeah.
that was
When I heard
interesting.
that, I was worried it was going to be the story of the settlers
Right.
before Ridley arrives.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
I was worried that was going to be it, and I kept being worried throughout the movie because I didn't catch the name of the colony they were at, and I didn't remember the
did
name
you?
of the colony in 2. And when they introduced the pregnant friend, I was like, this better not be the mother of the character, like the kid from
Newt.
Aliens. Like this may
Yeah.
not. Yeah, this
I
better
think,
not
I think
be
it's
Newt's
still this
mother,
is still a good
Yeah.
like 30-40 years before
It is.
Aliens,
It
though,
is.
so
It's
well
at
separated.
the point. Yeah, it was at the point where like he said like 40 years ago. I was like, oh, okay. I think we're good. I think
Yeah.
Cool.
He's 70 years when Ridley wakes up. And stuff.
But yes,
I-
so
yeah.
Oh, yeah. What were you gonna say?
Sorry, no, sorry. That was kind of a cool thing. I loved the kind of the carcass of that alien you see, and you're just kind of seeing it hanging, and you're like, that's the one
Yeah.
from the first one. That's kind of cool, and that
Yep.
sort
Yeah.
of like
Yep, that is the
throwback
one.
thing. But do you want to address your
The elephant in the room,
Yes,
the
the
ash
elephant
in
in
the
the
room.
room.
The ash.
The ash in the room.
The
Yeah,
ash in the
so
room.
of course, at first,
Yeah.
when they're coming across this derelict space station, there's acid pits or like holes in the space station. They come across this android split in two that's in shadows, and then you can like, oh, that looks kind of familiar, and then they need to get through this door. So what Andy has to do, he has to replace his chip with another Wayland Yutani chip to give him access to the wider facility. In doing so, that changes his personality and his prime directive, which is now that of Ash, and Mother, I should say, Mother's prime directive, and that it's about securing the organism.
Whatever's
What was it?
better for the company.
Actually, the black goo,
Yes.
which is back.
Yeah, the
black
goo.
the pathogen is
Still
back.
black
Yeah,
goo, which
it's about
fuck,
securing
was
that,
good.
and being able to create these things further over Rain, who's been looking after for years now.
Yeah.
But what we then get, of course, you replace the thing. I was like, okay, all right, okay. I was like, they're not doing the Ash thing. That's fine. No, they go back, and we get this horrible CGI recreation, deep fake looking weird puppet thing of Ian Holm.
Yeah, from
with
the first.
and I'm just like, right.
I don't think that was necessary at all for the plot to work in the slightest. That is exclusively, hey guys, look, it's the guy from the first one.
Yes, absolutely.
We've seen androids from like different like it would have been even a lot more fun if we had like someone like David maybe come back, like someone.
Yeah,
That's
Like,
Bishop.
he
that's
could have been
exactly what
Bishop
Lewis said
I
to
come
me.
said,
back.
I
Yeah,
said, well, obviously they replaced in Covenant. They
yeah,
mentioned how David is no longer a thing; it's the Walter model. And I
yeah.
was like, wouldn't it be cool if they got Michael Fassbender
They
in?
could have
And, you know,
gotten
Yeah.
him.
play
Yeah,
a Walter
exactly.
model,
And it
and
would have
obviously
been like,
have
hey,
him
look.
with the Sinister Prime directive of
Exactly.
Mother.
Yeah.
And I was like, that would be fantastic.
Like,
Or
we've
even
already had
you
so
were
many
saying
like
Bishop.
dubious.
You were
Yeah,
saying
like
Bishop
even
as
Bishop.
well.
Bishop would have been
Hmm.
great because Bishop
Yeah.
was like on the second one, he was like the foil to the first android,
Mm.
where it was like,
Yeah.
he was just there to help, literally.
I
That was all.
I
He
know, but
actually did everything well. So it would have been
the
really interesting to have him do the
you've
opposite
had.
now and then
I
being
know. The thing with
antagonistic.
Bishop,
Yeah.
is, I think Bishop got
Yeah.
ruined at the end of Alien 3 when he shows up as
Yeah.
Yeah.
a Weyland
Yeah.
Yutani
As a,
employee, and he's like, "I'm the
yeah.
one,"
Or maybe
and he's
he's also
bad,
an android. Yeah.
and he's bad for like 10 seconds, and he vanishes.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
eyes, I'm
Yeah.
like, that Bishop character is ruined in
No.
Alien 3.
That is true. Yeah.
Or you
Or
just
just
get
a
another
new actor.
actor.
Just an
Just
actor.
get
Yeah,
a
Just
new
yeah.
any
actor.
actor.
Well, no,
Just
Honestly, any
any
android.
actor.
Or
It
another
doesn't
Andy.
matter.
What if David
well,
Johnson got to play
it's
another Andy? That would
would
be
have been
cool.
that would have been
I
really cool.
well,
There'd
I
be
Yeah,
feel
three
well he.
Andys
that
I
would have
know,
technically.
been
but
really good.
he did
Yeah,
play
Yeah.
two Andys.
Yeah,
I
he
do
did
feel
play
that the
two
but
Andys. I get
you
that.
could
Yeah.
literally Michael Fassbender is the best choice. I
yeah.
thought there
Mm.
I would
would
have.
have been,
Yeah, or
and
literally
it
anyone.
annoys me. So
Anyone.
right,
Anyone.
I've got a question here
Mm,
because looking back into this is mainly to Lewis and see how his kind of
Mm.
mm,
opinion would have been when they did Alien 3 and they had Ripley goes to the really the molded puppets of Bishop
mm,
Yeah. Oh, Bishop was great.
that is obviously fake and it's just
mhm,
resembling him. What would you
mm.
have felt
Yeah.
if it was
Uh-huh.
clearly a
Uh-huh.
puppet made to look like
Half his
Ash
face was gone.
and it's
Yeah.
half of
Yeah.
Ash and it
Well,
may have a synthesized deep AI voice to resemble
That would
him?
have been a lot better.
yeah.
Would
That would
you
have
have
been a lot
Well,
preferred
better.
that?
well, I think.
Yeah, I would.
Well, yes, partly because I also think a huge problem of that is that you have to look at Ash's face, and it
Yeah,
clearly
it's
looks terrible.
bad. It's bad.
And also, see, especially when he's on the little telemonitors,
Mm.
it looks like you're playing
It's a
Bioshock or something,
PS3 game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah.
looks
yeah.
really really
Mm.
bad. Yes, that would have been. I think that would have been better. However, I also think a huge problem with the Ash character is he's literally an exposition dump. He's literally
Yes,
there
Mhm.
yes.
to just tell you,
It's not
just
a good way to
fire it
revive a
all in.
character. He's
Yeah.
Just
just there to
here's
tell
all
you how the
here's
things work. Yeah.
yeah, here's how the face circles work. Here's
I
all
mean,
the
he has
exposition.
the
This
exact
way to do this,
same
this.
character
Uh-huh.
thing that he did in the first
Mhm.
one. Like, they're not
Yeah.
introducing something to then like twist it,
Yeah,
which was
Mhm.
like that's
yeah,
what made Bishop so compelling in the second one. The
yeah,
fact
yeah.
that like
And
Ripley just went from mistrusting an android because he basically
mhm,
fucked them over to then
yeah,
an android that's actually helpful in every single turn, and you keep having those
mhm,
shots of him being just looking suspicious, but no, it turns
Yeah.
out
yeah,
he's just a good guy.
yeah. He's just a good guy.
But
So
now
yeah,
you're
it
just
was.
reintroducing the guy who was shady as fuck and obsessed with the mission
Yeah,
over the people to be shady as
yeah,
fuck and obsessed with the
Yeah.
mission
yeah.
over the people.
And yeah, the
Like,
dialogue and just like I was
nice.
saying, the perfect
Yeah.
organism, and oh yeah, you're like, oh, I don't fancy your chances and all that,
Anyone
whatever.
could have done that.
That
It'd
I'm just
been
like
interesting.
that. Just for me was just like,
Yeah,
it's
I
just
understand.
so
Mhm.
unnecessary, and that's really the thing. I don't really
Hmm.
get the direction, the creative decision to really do that because
I
even
don't
if
think it was a
you,
great.
I
I think that
no,
was a studio
well
thing.
actually it was Alvarez's idea, right, to
Was
do
it?
it.
Mm.
So
That's a bad
if
idea.
it was Alvarez's idea, I don't understand how you don't look back and think
Hmm.
if at most some
Hmm.
people like it, but what's really going to happen is a lot
Hmm.
of people aren't going to like it. I
Hmm.
may like the idea,
Yeah.
but really, what is it
Or
for? Who is it
Yeah.
for?
yeah, or
Well,
even
that's
if
what
okay,
is this
so
for?
you
Uh-huh.
want to bring back this
Mhm,
deceased actor.
mhm.
Cool. What if we do it in a way that's respectful and we actually give him a fucking interesting role rather than having
Mhm.
him
Yeah.
be a,
That's
a glorified like booklet?
I feel like it's like a video game guy telling you what
Yeah, it
objective I
is.
need
It
to go
is. It
through
is. And
next.
he has
That's
the
what
face
it
of a
feels
video game
like.
guy because he
And he
looks
has the face of a
exactly
video
like a
Mhm.
character, so
video
it
game
just
guy.
makes it
Yeah.
so much worse. There's that stuff too. Like I was saying,
Mm,
interesting that
mm,
amongst all the other little quotes from other films, they
mm,
actually, I
mm.
was like, oh right, we're doing the Covenant Prometheus pathogen,
Yeah.
black
Yes,
pathogen,
yes. I
from
actually
Spawn.
like that. I thought that
I
was
was like,
really cool of
okay,
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like them, so in this we know
Mm.
like they can they've extracted from the thing from the
Yeah, they
face huggers,
basically
Yeah.
in Romulus and Remus, which I
reverse
don't remember the name of
engineered.
this nation, but like
Yeah.
in like Romulus and Remus, one of the sites, they basically like distilled. They studied
Yeah.
the aliens. They distilled them to the
Yeah.
point where they recreated the
The
goop
pathogen.
of
Yeah.
life
Yeah,
from
because
Prometheus. Yeah.
it was the fast metabolism that they wanted,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
they tested it. They crushed a wee rodent, a mouse or something,
Yes.
Yeah.
added the pathogen in, and it was alive again. Obviously, if you
Yes.
kept watching the clip for 20 seconds, it then burst
Yes.
into
Yes.
something, and there is a,
Yeah.
they were trying to
Yes.
distill it to some sort of
Mm.
kind of miracle elixir or something
Mm.
to
Yeah.
be able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
use in a
If you watch
wartime
Prometheus,
scenario.
you know
Yeah.
goop no good. Goop bad.
Yeah,
Goop,
Goop, no good.
Bad.
And they
Goop,
reference
no
how it's like
good.
this weird thing that like we've seen in Prometheus and Covenant, changes with every
Yes.
host. It can
Yes.
mutate things in different ways. And I'm
Which
like, okay,
again is
so
like
you're
an
taking that on
echo.
board.
Yeah, which is like an echo with the xenomorph, because
Yeah.
xenomorph as like an invasive species that takes a host. It uses part of their genetic material to create
Yeah.
itself. Hence, why the xenomorphs that we
Yeah.
most commonly see are bipedal, because they, they're taken from
Human,
humans, so they
yeah.
look humanoid.
Mhm.
Then you
The
have
one from the
the
first, the
dog.
Yeah.
You
ox
have
or the
the
dog. Sorry,
like
yeah.
yeah, like you. So
Um,
it's this idea of continuing with this kind of like parasitic idea of like taking in the DNA of something and then manipulating. Which again, it's cool because it's echoing, and this is a thing that I really enjoyed about the movie. I don't know if they did it purposefully or it's so heavy in the lore now, but they kept echoing those ideas of like birth, motherhood, and the fucking horror that it actually is.
Yeah.
I like the cocoon when the
That
xenomorph
was
comes out. He
cool.
Yeah.
creates a cocoon in order to grow. I like how it looked like a terrifying vagina. That was horrific. That
It
was
did,
fantastic.
yeah.
As they do, the
Yeah.
face huggers are kind of that as well. Of
Yeah,
course.
so like it's that kind of idea of like we're talking about the basics of the design of these xenomorphs and these aliens. It's all around that idea of like the horrors of like biological birth and motherhood and stuff like that. Like the Chesperter came out of a man's stomach for a reason. Like that's so I do like the fact that they kept with the motif, even with the Romulus and Remus thing, being like this whole idea of like the mother wolf with the two sons, the fucking creepy ass scene at the end with the white guy, tall, lanky, half fucking engineer thing, just suckling at the tit that's coming like black liquid. That was horrendous. I did not enjoy that. That was great.
Character who absolutely gets the worst here is Kay, played
Yeah.
by Isabella Merced.
Oh, yeah.
She's horrible experience.
Horrible.
Yeah, I mean, and it just dies at the end as well. It's
Yeah.
just the top.
We
all.
don't even
to live.
get a proper confirmation of her death. She just like
No, she's dead. It's like, yeah.
She's the prime example of why I was happy it was teenagers, because I was like, if a professional put that black goop in them, I'd be like, you're idiots.
Yes.
You do not put an unknown substance. But she was like, "Oh, I'm dying."
Who's just been told it, and it's like, I need to make it out because
I need to
save
make
my
it out
kid.
to have a kid.
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, in my head that that kind of worked. I did.
And it kind of demonstrates why the first two movies worked as well as they did. In the first one, we basically just had adults that were just competent, like blue collar workers,
Yep.
facing something they didn't understand or like want to deal with at all. In the second, you have the cocky ass Marines, like where like yes, they are competent at fighting, but they've never faced something like this, and also they are overconfident in their abilities. And that's what like brings them down. And then in this one, they're teenagers who don't know what the fuck they're doing, and are just trying their best to survive in a galaxy that basically wants to make them miserable and kill them.
Yeah.
So it does like
Yeah, sorry, no, but like you say, that's the beginning stuff. Like basically, everyone is a slave to one corporation that has probably monopolized the universe, right?
Yeah.
So
they mergers, man. Wayland.
They all merged. Apple is merged with everything. I mean, I wish there was more on the actual planet, because that's the stuff that I like as well.
It felt claustrophobic.
The first 20 minutes and the last 20 minutes were definitely my favorite portions of this film. And like you're saying, I love what I always like with these alien films. Like, okay, the xenomorph is hard to make scary. We've seen it a billion times now, and I'm glad with sort of even with like the prequels with Prometheus, with Covenant, and now this. We get a new alien in every film. We
Yeah.
get a new alien design in every
Yeah.
film, and I don't know, they probably do have an official name for it on the fan wiki or whatever it's called, or whatever the big engineer
Yeah, let me
alien
look it up.
xeno engineer, whatever it's called.
Lanky
That
dude.
is
I was
cool.
honestly, I was walking my dog last night at like 2 in the morning. Everything
Right.
was quiet and dark, and I saw a tree, and I was like, "Shit, that kind of looks like the lanky tall man." And I'll shit
Lanky
myself
tall
for a
man.
second there, because like, yeah, that is terrifying. The lanky tall man is
Yeah.
absolutely fucking terrifying. That was a great design. I think they did like a really good job with like making him kind of feel hollow as well, with like the
Yes.
uneven kind of
Yes.
like he's not like a perfect organism, kind of like you have with the
Oh.
xenomorph. He's like all twisted. He has like hollowness within his ribs and his back,
Yeah.
and like the
What was
back of his
the
skull is almost like missing half a brain and stuff. It's quite nice.
Robert
Yeah,
Robert
it's quite
Bob
nice.
Ross
Yeah.
Robert Borowski is the actor that plays him.
Oh wow.
He's a
Yeah.
7'7" Romanian basketball player.
Whoa. Wow. He did
Wow,
a good
that's
job. He
incredible.
did a
Yeah.
good
That's
job. I'm
incredible.
And
glad.
if
Yeah,
if
that's why
you
it looks so
if
good.
you actually look at him, it's like
Yeah.
they really took his face, because it is that
Yeah.
creature. His face. He
Yeah.
weirdly
Yeah.
resembles an
Wow.
engineer as well. It's just very
Yeah.
unfortunate. I have to say.
He's got that what's it called, like the handsome Squidward face, you know, that the
Yeah, no,
engineers have. Yeah.
Yeah.
he does.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
insane.
Wow.
Actually, that was quite bit
So
practical.
of course, I will say
Mm,
at the end of this film,
mm,
Rain and Andy, who's finally back,
mm,
which he does, like we say, he says the iconic line, "Get away from her,
mm.
you bitch."
Yes.
We know he's got his chip back, and it's only Rain and Andy who are left alive by the end of the
Mm,
film, and they go off to, is it Ivaga? Sorry,
mm,
the planet, their dream planet, where they can finally see sun.
mm.
Because of course we forgot to mention on Jackson's Star there is no sunlight.
Yes, which
Yeah.
I
which makes
loved.
it even more
Like
miserable.
that
Yeah, great
scene
detail.
as they're
Uh-huh.
like lifting off and they kind of like get out of the planet and see the sun for the first time. That's I feel like my biggest issue with the movie is that we didn't get to know some of these characters more, because the stuff that I saw I really liked. Like I was really liking how they
Yeah.
did with these characters and their backstories and stuff, and we didn't get to see enough of them before
Yeah, I don't
everything
think so
starts
either.
going down, you know. But yeah, I get how like they want to get to this stuff
Oh,
as soon as
did you
Yes.
see?
possible,
I
Mm.
don't know, Liz, if you saw absolute random thing, but
Mm.
Isabel, I can't remember her second name, confirmed to a Variety article who the father was.
Yeah,
I
it
don't,
was.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay. Now, I thought that was quite obvious that
Mm.
because
because she
there's a
says it's
scene.
just some asshole, right? She
Yeah,
Yes,
says
the
it's just some
boyfriend.
asshole
Yeah,
as the dad.
it's
And I was like,
the
well, there's
cousin.
one clear asshole
The
on this
cousin. Yeah,
spaceship. It's going to be him. But I did. I didn't clock that they were cousins.
they're cousins.
So I
No,
was
Yeah,
like,
I
yeah,
that's the bit I missed.
they're
I was
cousins.
like,
Yeah.
I was like, wait, where did they say that in the room at the beginning of the film that they were
Yeah,
cousins?
yeah, I mean, yeah, he's
yeah. Well,
constantly
see,
called my cousin.
I
The brother
yeah.
of the pregnant lady calls him my
Yeah.
cousin a lot. So she doesn't call him my
Right.
cousin, which is also telling that she doesn't refer to him as
Yeah.
her cousin. But like,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
See,
brother calls him his cousin
it
a
was
lot.
the other way around for me. I
Yeah,
clocked they were
yeah.
cousins. I didn't clock that he was the
Your cousins,
father,
but you
because
didn't clock us.
I
Mm.
never
No, it
I
was
never
so
clocked.
I
obvious. It
called
was
both,
like
guys. I don't know
they
what.
literally said it's some asshole. I know.
Yeah.
She says it's some
Yeah.
asshole, and I was like, well, there's one fucking terrible guy on this ship. It's going to be him.
Well,
And I was
no,
like, well,
I
I'm
know,
glad
but
he's dead.
I was like, there's more people on this planet. I thought there'd have been like
Too much
I
of an
mean, that's
asshole,
true.
in my
That's
opinion.
true.
Yeah.
It was too much of a caricature.
Too much of an asshole. I
to
will
me.
say it
Too-
was
I was
interesting
like,
to
right.
have get him to have like that's the thing. He was two dimensional for my taste.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
I
I
understand
agree.
they gave the whole backstory of like a robot killed his mom, haha, and
Yeah.
that's what he hates. I don't know. I feel like it should have been like more of an insecurity thing. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
agree.
should have
I
just
agree.
explored more. Like he's just a cocky asshole because he's scared and insecure, and
Yeah.
we should have had a moment of vulnerability. I think
Yeah.
like we were missing a moment of vulnerability for him, because it would have made his death more impactful. Like I feel like
Do
in these, yeah,
Yeah, I just so I had a theory that what I thought was going to happen in it, which didn't,
Yes.
which was actually kind of opposite to what. Well, on par with what you guys are saying, that there's also an evil robot. When
Yeah.
at the start when you get introduced to Andy and you discover that
Mm.
obviously her father found him and put him together, and that's why he's got a bit of reduced mobility and a bit of a stutter or stammer, and
Yeah, he's
he's got
so he's so like docile and
yeah
sweet.
Yeah.
he's got one prime directive, which is to protect
Yes.
the girl.
Mm.
I thought it was going to be a bit of a switch to route where
Mm.
it was going to be like she intakes his prime directive into Mother, and then that was going to be how
Ah.
like she
Oh,
would
the
be the
ship
final
has to.
she would be the final girl because the mother was
Mm.
like its prime directive was
Protecting
not like
her.
protect the species, but it was now just to protect
Mm.
her. That's when I first
Exactly.
watched it. That's where I thought it was going, and that's
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
I was still quite
I think
glad
that's
with
really
the
interesting.
whole Andy
Hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
um
I
character
like the
flip.
redemption thing.
Oh,
The
by the way,
alien.
see
That
when
was really
he's
good.
rebooting and his eyes roll back
Yes.
and
And
you
the
see the
Wayland,
Wayland
yeah,
Britannic.
Wayland
That
Yes.
Yutani.
That was
that was
that was
creepy. That was
that
pretty
was
creepy. I actually found that
Yeah.
pretty creepy.
And you knew something bad was gonna happen when you saw
Yeah.
that W logo show
Mm.
up. Right, so like I was saying,
Mm.
her and Rain and Andy are off to their beautiful sunny planet. Hopefully they'll get there. Unlikely if this film does well though. So let's have a
Yeah.
look at box office. So currently it's sitting at 118 million worldwide after what almost a week of release.
Yeah, week
Pretty good for
tomorrow.
an $8 million budget so far. Recouped that budget in one weekend. That's always good to see. It'll be vying again for #1 spot against Deadpool and Wolverine, which could retake its top spot this weekend. Both vying for about $20 million each way. Now, one, do you think this will get a sequel? And two, if we do get a sequel, well, it's impossible to kind of predict these things, but like, will we see Rain and Andy back? Do you think encountering another alien problem?
I do really like Rain and Andy as characters. I
Mhm.
Yeah.
don't know if they're like, but I also didn't. I also wouldn't like if I watched the first Alien. I also wouldn't have thought like I would have brought like her back. Like I would have been like
Ripley
just,
back, yeah.
leave Ripley there and just go with someone
Mhm.
else. I'm not a big fan of like continuing stories that were clearly designed to just be a one off.
Yeah.
You got.
I don't know if this was to be. I think it's purposely left open ended
Yeah.
so that because
So
it's Disney and they're
No, I
constantly looking
know,
for
but like
sequels. That
their character arcs are done. Like they did
right,
their
yeah.
character arcs. They
Yeah.
But like
and
you're saying with the Ripley thing, to be
yeah.
fair,
Hmm.
just because there's a sequel doesn't mean that the character arc's ever going to be bad. It could be improved
Yeah,
or
no, that's
we can
true.
get a new
It's
character that's
Aliens
very
was
interesting.
yeah.
Aliens, I think she's the absolute heart and soul of that film, and her character arc with Newt is
Yeah.
really touching. And it was
And
actually
Alien
she
3
got
was
Oscar nominated for that role.
Oh,
As
nice.
reprising her role in
Wow.
Aliens
yeah.
over the first
I
time.
get that.
So
I get that. She was
mhm.
fantastic in it.
She is
I'm a
fantastic.
Yeah.
yeah. I'm a bit not iffy on whatever gets sequel because obviously what gives me the fear is that this was originally meant to be a straight to Hulu or Disney Plus
Yes.
Oh, I
original
didn't
film.
know that.
Yeah, no, that's this was originally gonna be a straight to Disney Plus
Along
film.
with Prey,
Yeah,
I
like
guess.
Prey.
Yeah, no, seriously,
yeah.
that's the thing, and I
Yeah,
don't
it
know
was kind
if
of supposed to be
maybe
Prey,
the
yeah.
numbers on Prey did pretty good, and they just kind of went
Mhm.
like, "We'll chuck
I'm
this
glad
on."
they did. I enjoyed
I'm
watching
glad
it.
this got a theatrical release as well, and I just don't know if that's maybe kind of like I don't know
Are
if
you
Disney
guys
have gone
scared
right.
we're
We
getting
gave
another
them.
Alien versus Predator?
No, they're not gonna do that. No, they're
No.
not dumb. They're not dumb.
No, they won't do that.
But I'm just I
Hmm.
think I genuinely think Disney are gonna probably take their time and not greenlit anything too quickly. I think they're
Yeah,
gonna
if
maybe
they
just wait
do,
and
I
see.
I am
think-
scared of what you were saying, Lewis. I am scared that they're gonna see the success of this one as being, hey, we did the same thing again. And they're
Right,
gonna
well,
do the same
they
thing
could.
again.
They
Which
could.
that wasn't what was successful for me. What was successful for me was like the expanding that they did with this. Like I enjoyed how they expanded the universe while sticking to a very basic, simple premise. Which after watching, Covenant and Prometheus, I enjoyed the symbol. I have no issues with the things those two movies were going for. By the way, I just think they failed at what they were going for. But I
Alien
really like
Covenant,
the idea of
man.
the cosmic.
Well, yeah, I'm always gonna back
It
him
was
up.
it was ish. It was good-ish. It's like
I
half
don't
of
even
the
love
movie I'm
Alien
really
Covenant.
into.
I like the ideas behind Alien
I'm
Covenant.
really into a lot of the stuff in Alien
Yeah.
Covenant, and then it just does a bunch of shit where I'm like, why is this even happening? Can we go back to that stuff,
Anyway,
please? Thank you.
but
you know what I mean? So like,
I think
Yeah.
this film needs to make 240 million
Yeah.
And then when it's done
Then
that,
we'll get a sequel.
Disney will probably have talks about doing another one and
Okay.
maybe bringing back Fede Alvarez or whoever
I'm
has a good
okay if they
idea
don't
to
do a
do another
sequel.
one.
I feel like this was a fantastic refresher. Like,
Well, to be fair, I mean, even if you're going to get a sequel, and I mean, we're getting
I mean, yeah,
another prequel in Alien Earth next year, the TV
that's true.
series, which is
Mhm.
somehow set before Prometheus. Don't
Yeah,
understand
I
how that
know.
works.
I saw that.
Very confusing. Is there going to be a xenomorph in it? Whatever.
I don't know.
So we're already getting another Alien thing next year, which will be interesting. But I do. I mean, these things. If you look at like the current timeline of how quickly they make an Alien
Yeah, true.
film of sorts, it's usually like
Mm.
every 4 or 5 years. I
If
mean,
it
there's been
keeps to
7
that
between this
timeline,
and
and
Covenant,
if
but
it goes like my only fear, like as with
yeah.
all sequels, is the priority going to be find a good story to tell, then make a sequel, or is it going to be make a sequel at all costs? If it's at all costs, I don't want to see it. If it's hey,
Well,
let's see if we can come up with something good for the next one, then maybe yeah. I mean, I'll be interested in seeing what
well,
they do. And I'd love to see Andy and Rain back because they fucking killed it, and it was the best part of the whole film for me. Loved their relationship, loved their ups and downs, and yeah, it was like that
Mhm.
drama was the thing that drove the film for me. I will tell them for the next one focus a bit more on the human characters. I think there was
Yeah.
a small of a lack of like the expanded cast. We didn't really like with Alien 1 and even with Aliens,
mhm,
like you have like you could make a movie with each one of these characters. They're so like well rounded and iconic and have
yeah,
their personality and their stuff. Like
yeah.
they're good characters. So just try do that again.
Mhm.
But that's the only thing honestly. Like they
That'll be the thing.
I'll be happy to see more interesting set pieces. Like I said, the fucking
Remus.
like
Yeah.
yeah, the Remus moment when they walk into the fucking face hugger thing with the temperature stuff, that was
That was
terrifying. Like
yeah. That
that was
was
great.
I didn't like
That was
Yeah,
that, but
the
fantastic.
acid
that's
blood
an increase
sequence
in it.
obviously had become a fan favorite as
Love
well.
the acid sequence.
The
That
whole
was fantastic.
crashing space. The thing
Yeah.
about it's always one of these things of nitpicking films where it's like
Hmm.
the clock is like we have half an hour till impact, and everyone's just
Yeah, I
walking to their
know.
destination.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
fucking run!
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a nitpick.
But
Whatever.
I did
The
like that they
crash was really
literally
cool.
the crash was
Yeah,
gorgeous. Like
crash looks
the
brilliant.
special effects for the visual effects for the
Obviously,
crash
Yeah.
were
stunning.
fantastic.
I love that they read a little bit of astronomy and were like, hey, so yeah, it turns out these discs are made of ice. So that was really cool. I loved
They picked up
the
a
kind of
book.
like yeah, like that whole like sequence of the thing crashing down slowly and stuff. Like I think it was generally they kind of did what you could do with a space station.
Mhm.
Like we've
Yeah,
seen this concept before and we've seen
yeah,
it done very poorly.
mhm,
And I feel like they kind of like squeezed out all of the potential of the setting that they could.
yeah,
And I really enjoyed that. Like it felt really, really solid. Same with like a lot of the setup and payoffs. Like the fact that the first time they go out of the ship, like Andy like touches the little hangy things and he gets told not to touch
Mhm.
anything by the asshole,
mhm.
and like right there they're setting up the thing that she's gonna
That
use
will be
at the very
used at the end.
Yeah.
like it's really good. Like it's got a lot of really like
It's also a
solid.
weird
Mm.
reference to Don't Breathe. If you've seen Don't Breathe, and they
I
have
haven't
the
seen Don't
hooks
Breathe
and
yet.
the like
Mm.
the cables.
Mm.
Fede Alvarez has a weird obsession with
With hooks.
birthing and hooks and shit. If you've
They
seen Don't
did a
Breathe, you
lot
know
of
exactly what I'm talking
hooking.
about.
The Xenomorphs did a lot of hooking. I did notice
Yeah.
that. In the first
Yes.
movie, there was a lot more blatant killing.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
in this one, I'm guessing because they were playing on the second movie's idea of the hive, like their warm
Yeah.
bodies
Yeah.
to be infected rather than just like food.
Yeah. Just
Uh,
food.
there was a lot of like tail hooks. I will say that. A lot of
Mhm.
tail hooks.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
let's move on.
Kneecap.
Let's quickly talk about Kneecap. So that was Alien Romulus.
Yes.
All our opinions are given. Right. So let's very quickly do Kneecap Kellis premieres tomorrow or today, whenever you're listening to this podcast.
Mm.
So based off the real life Irish rap duo or trio, really, because they have a DJ, of course. Kneecap
Kneecap.
was directed by Rich. Kneecap, yep. Was directed by Rich Pipiat and stars
Hmm.
Kneecap. All three of them
Oh wow, really?
are playing themselves in this
I
in
I
this
didn't
uh,
I
this this
didn't get
comedy.
this until the
I
end
did not know that.
montage, and I was just like, hey, they look They look
It's
pretty
the same.
similar. I know.
Oh, that's
Genuinely,
good.
that was me.
Wow,
Yeah.
great casting, guys. They look
Yeah,
exactly like
I
the
was
guys
like,
from
well
Untitled.
done.
So Kneecap is
Yeah.
basically
Mm.
the rise of the band itself. You know, their
Mm.
sort of beginnings with sort of the hostile beginnings because their dad is very much involved with the IRA. He's actually played by Michael Fassbender, you know,
Yeah.
funny coincidence there in this film. With the connections to the IRA and the Republicans against drugs front as well. And sort of how do they get out of their actually very imprisoned community in Belfast because they are constantly looked at by, constantly watched by the law because they still believe their father is alive, committing, still enacting potential terrorist acts or whatever else, and supplying drugs and arms or whatever else. Oh, almost dropped my mic. And so basically the two boys are constantly watched by the police and they kind of are stuck and can't really kind of move on with their lives because they're either tied to the gangs or they're tied to, you know, being watched by the police. But in doing that, one day DJ Provi is one of the characters' names, has to go meet one of the boys who's now in lockup, and it's clearly he doesn't speak English, he can only speak Irish Gaelic. And so he has to sort of translate for the police officers who don't speak it. And in doing that, he uncovers the boy's journal and realizes he is an incredible lyricist. In doing so, he finds the two brothers and wants to, you know, create music with them.
Not
so that's
brothers.
all I'll say about Neat.
Yeah.
Oh, are they not brothers?
They're not brothers.
Adopted
They're just
brothers.
friends.
They're not brothers.
They're not brothers.
But they're grew up together. They're brothers. No,
No,
they're not.
I
They're
think
not.
they-
They actually say that. They say they actually say I'm pretty sure they're like brothers. I actually am
They're
pretty
like
sure they say that at the beginning
Yeah,
of the film.
yeah.
Yes.
I
I was like, yeah,
no, because
you're
I
right,
was,
they
I
are.
was, I was, I was like,
part of the
don't.
IRA or just one
No,
of their
it was
dads?
just
one
one
of
of
just
them.
one of the
and-
dads. Yeah.
Yeah,
one of the
because
dads.
The other one,
it was.
but like
it
they
was
grew
the
up in the
dad.
same neighborhood, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah,
as if, like,
it was the
yeah.
dad that kind of put the Irish language into them, both of them.
Okay.
But it's obviously kind of
Anyway, Kel,
one. Yeah.
What were your overall thoughts on Kneecap then?
Kneecap was a great time. It was hysterical. Kneecap, honestly.
Very funny.
Such a well written comedy. Really well edited. Like just the actual, like the
Yeah,
one
really
times they do little
really
snappy, jumpy.
Mhm.
A lot of love and dedication clearly went into making this film. I was really, they were clearly really passionate about the Gaelic language, and there's obviously a subplot about it becoming into law. I can't remember the Gaelic language reform.
They want to make it. Yeah.
And the boys and the DJ just slowly trying to kind of get into this music and kind of rile them up and the kind of repercussions that having this music does.
In the face,
And
absolutely.
and it's so funny because I was with my pal who's a big Celtic supporter. I was like, yeah, I saw this film with this Irish band called Kneecap. He's like, Kneecap, we love them. And I'm like, I was like, oh, of course you guys did. I was like, they just did not exist to me. And the way they kind of did the music in the film is really good. I really kind of liked how. And they did it, and obviously it's through the Irish accent. I mean, it's Irish language. Most of it is in Irish language, and it's
most of it is actually in Irish language. Yeah, I kind of forgot it was actually all subtitled. Now I think about it.
Yeah,
it was actually most. They did split it.
You weirdly
a little bit
blend
on it.
into it.
You blend
I
into it.
weirdly found Michael Fassbender's character quite funny because he's like thinking he's got this unholy mission to kind of stay hidden, and his entire family are like, "What mission? This is your like it's over." He thinks he's
We all
like
know.
hiding out. You know, like
He's still trying to,
everybody
you know,
knows
rebel
he's
against-
alive.
He's still you know, trying to rebel against the sort of British Empire, but it's the times have moved on from that time since the trouble and stuff. But yeah,
surprised how so both of them are the actual real life musicians.
And all three of them, including the DJ.
All three of them.
Even the DJ.
Yeah.
And they play themselves, and it's holy mother of Christ. Like, that is not an easy thing to do as a non-actor. Like, what the heck?
It's like I was saying, it's
like
very,
if you do a
funny.
drama as like a singer, like, that's fine. Everyone can look mopey
They
for
play
a bit,
themselves. They play themselves with confidence, and you know it's very sincere as well. They're both both really good. All three, actually, no,
Fascinating.
especially I should say,
Yeah.
DJ Provi, who's the music
Yeah.
teacher. I
Uh-huh.
thought he was genuinely his entire storyline is genuinely brilliant. I thought it was really
Yeah.
really fun.
Wow.
I mean, look,
This teacher going through a
obviously,
midlife
uh,
crisis is brilliant.
Mm,
Yeah.
um, living in Glasgow and
mm.
growing up around the culture that is Rangers and Celtic football clubs, there is
Yeah.
a bunch of references, obviously
We
that we
Yeah.
a lot of us
there's
would
so
get.
many
That
that we
there's
yeah.
a lot of that stuff.
Mm.
Anti Rangers and Celtic and all that stuff. There's a lot of jokes there. I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like if you're living in
Yeah, as a
elsewhere
foreigner,
outside
I
of.
probably won't get most
Yeah.
of these. This is
Yeah,
like
I
Um
even
trying
I
to
still think.
explain Spanish comedies to someone who isn't Spanish. Like everything is just
No, I
inside
think
jokes.
I think
Yeah.
there's of course those jokes that are
Mm.
essential to especially Irish history.
Mm.
But I still think obviously if you don't know about it, it's actually
It
it's quite
works. Yeah.
informative as
Mm.
well, and
yeah.
also there's plenty of hundreds of other jokes that you'll especially
Yeah.
get behind. Even the
Yeah.
lyricism. I mean, even though me
Mm.
and Kel, I mean, don't obviously speak
Mm.
Irish Gaelic, the
No.
lyricism and the
Mm.
way it's rapped is so
Mm.
engaging.
They
When
are
it does the music
really
sequences.
talented. They are
Uh
Oh wow.
hugely
yeah,
Yeah.
they are
talented.
very, very talented people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like you were saying, I mean, it has all this to do. I mean,
Mm.
all this discussion about the power of language and like
Yes.
what words mean, how it's
Mm.
used, its effect as a weapon, and sort of the erasure of that culture. It's
Mm.
actually
Mm.
really packed with a lot of ideas, and it's really really fun watch.
That's
Anyway,
fascinating. Mm.
Kyle, what are
Yes.
you gonna give Kneecap?
I'm gonna give a Kneecap a very very solid 7 out of 10. I think I really
Mm-hmm.
resonate more if I was Irish. Because it's really
Yeah,
made for the people, and I feel as
Mm.
much
yeah,
of an outsider I am to the language and into the whole
Mm.
struggles. I
mm,
just have to give it that is I can take as much as I can from that.
yeah, yeah,
I found it from having no idea about this film because this was one of our secret screenings.
mhm,
Mm.
yeah.
When two guys beside us just got up and left and just went, I fucking hate the Irish, and I was like, right, I know I'm in
Yeah,
for a
we
good
had
time.
Wow.
genuine. We were sitting next to
Wow.
the credits for those trailers, Kyle. I had to tell
Yeah,
you.
Wow. Holy
Yeah, that was
fuck.
crazy. It was genuinely crazy. I was like,
that was
whoa.
probably that was probably one of the
That's
most
funny.
shocking things I've ever seen in the cinema,
Uh, see,
Yeah,
I
and the
knew
fact
there
yeah,
was
absolutely.
like anti-Irish bigotry. I didn't know it was
yeah,
like cartoonish.
Yeah,
and
I
oh
didn't
no,
know
it's
it
the
was
no,
like
best,
and
yeah,
then you
cartoonish
just see those types of people on screen like half an hour
Yeah.
uh,
later. You're like, oh
Yeah.
wow, there they are.
and
Holy
the
fuck.
best thing, Goodfellow,
Yeah,
is they each
Yeah.
had a large Coke and a large popcorn, and they just got.
they were.
And me and Lewis were like, if you're dedicated to these secret
That
screenings,
costs so
you
much as
you
well.
obviously
Like
have an unlimited card. We thought you'd be
I sneak
dedicated.
yeah, like
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
sneak food
but
into the cinema
yeah,
every single time. Like
no,
the amount
um,
of money that you have to spend to get one
yeah,
of those.
yeah.
Wow.
But
but
it's
a
actually
solid 7 out of 10.
it's
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's insane that those people
Yeah,
exist. Even like
I
whatever.
wasn't aware. I thought that was just a thing
Yeah.
from movies where like you
No, it's
exaggerate the
yeah.
bigotry to showcase
It is,
like what the
but that's what I mean. Like a lot of the
yeah.
toxicity and stuff on screen is
Yeah.
obviously huge in
Mm,
Glasgow and
mm,
Scotland
yeah,
as well,
yeah.
just because of two football clubs and one of their bases being with Ireland. So
Because it's also like a
it's
Protestant
madness.
Catholic thing, right? Like it also has to
Yes,
do
mhm.
with
yes.
like
Well,
yeah,
well,
religious
yeah,
sects and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm actually gonna give this an 8 out of 10. I gave it a 7 out of 10, but the more I thought about it and the more I think back to it,
Mm. What do you
I had
think?
a lot of fun with Kneecap. I really did. I think it's really
I
funny,
appreciate
engaging.
that.
Has
If it,
really important
yeah,
ideas with it as well. It's just a great time. It's just an
Mm.
absolute great time. Of course, you will resonate with it more if you're
Yeah.
born and raised and live in Ireland or whatever else.
But
But
that specific
uh,
struggle of
mhm,
like a local language being oppressed by a central
mhm.
government and like
Yeah.
having like these people fighting for that, like that is a
Mhm,
very like worldwide
mhm.
thing. Like I
Yeah,
can tell
absolutely.
you
It's got the
five
very
different provinces in Spain that
cross-continental
have that same
themes with
thing.
it as
Yeah,
well,
like
which
yeah,
I
that
really I
sounds
really
yeah,
liked. Uh-huh.
that sounds
Yeah,
fascinating.
so check it out if you can. But that will
yeah.
wrap up today's show. So thank you very much, Gonzalo, for joining me.
I'm so happy to be back.
I'm very happy you're back. I'm very happy you're
Yeah,
back, and
yeah.
thank you, Kyle, as well.
You're welcome. Hopefully he
And you
stays
don't
around
get,
for a wee bit.
you don't get like a no
I'm
Belgium eyes.
I'm
Cheers, mate.
always here. I'm always
He's
here.
always here.
Always, yeah.
But yeah, we will be back very soon, actually, in
Mm.
the coming week, because we're going to be looking at the entire summer movie season and reviewing it and see was it good, was it bad, our favorites, our least favorites. everything else, all the hidden gems, all
Mhm.
that nonsense within the summer movie season, as well as a couple of reviews hopefully we'll have next week as well. But look, we just give our opinion on Kneecap and of course Alien Romulus, but at the end of the day, those were our unwanted opinions. Thank you very much.